Hello, it's Kat, and this is the live on the War at Home. If only someone knew, Guardians War Cry YouTube channel and Guardians War Cry Facebook page as well, where we talk about abuse openly and trying to get some messages out there that help society see what it is, so that we can be better informed and aware as to what it looks like in our homes, in our communities, in uh, our government, and make it as simple as possible in the way that I understand it so that um, you can see the pattern of behavior, because I think that's the only way we're going to get around these situations, is to have a better understanding that isn't complicated by research or people uh, doing the work and giving it other names. I always think about this idea of reactive abuse, where people are now being called abusive because they react to abuse, and it's not that. It's more that somebody is behaving um, in an abusive way, uh, causing somebody to feel like they need to defend themselves in a self defense kind of way. And that's natural to react to somebody that's being abusive to you. We don't need another name for it. We just need an understanding of it. And so, if you're new to the channel and new to the page itself, I usually have a disclaimer, but because of everything that was going on, I forgot to put it up, and I'm sorry. But basically, if you're watching this, you're on a live, public live, and if you comment, you can be seen. Um, you can also message in the back if you'd like to. But basically, I'm Kat. I'm one of the admins here, and I just talk openly about abuse and what it looks like, and like I said, how can we see it? So today I wanted to talk about this idea of coercive control, because I talk about coercive control as being the underpinning of all abuse, as Dr. Cochiolo was talking to me one day about. And I think if that's the underpinning of all abuse, then why aren't we discussing it as the abuse tactic that it is? Because I feel like when we add all these other words, and especially if you're healing from abuse, it only adds to the confusion about what it really is, because it's patterned behavior. And if we go back to Albert Biderman, which I bring up a lot, is because he did research in 1957 to find these tactics, and that were done to the POWs in the Korean War that came back and were having trouble in adapting. And he saw what was happening, and he made the connection that this is what's happening in domestic violent home. And so I feel like that if out of the 7,900, I think 5 men that he uh, uh, researched and worked with, only 5% of them did not give in to uh, the coercive control demands of their captives, their captors. And so if you think about that, then you can start to understand why it's hard for people that are in these kinds of relationships to leave, why it's hard for people to kind of break away from abusive families, why it's kind of hard to break away from abuse in uh, workplaces, why it's hard to go to court and be heard for what's going on, because you've been in an abusive relationship, and possibly you haven't come out. And by the time you come out, then you're having to deal with all these emotional uh, trappings that have happened to you, and go into court and be the perfect um, You have to speak in decorum, which is crazy. Why are we doing this? Why are we not just making this easy? Coercive control has, if you look at Biderman's work, it has 8 topics. It has isolation. It has monopolizing somebody's perception. It's, I don't have it sitting right in front of me. It's threats. It's humiliation and degradation. It's, oh, it's right off the tip of my tongue. Occasional indulgence in somebody, that would be like your love bombing, or you're trying to con them. Um, Demonstrating omnipotence and the trivial demands on somebody to see if they are indeed somebody you can control if you're using those tactics. Why we talk about narcissistic tendencies, or not tendencies, sorry, narcissistic traits, is because narcissistic traits show you the behaviors. So if you can see the tactics and you can see the behaviors, then we, in my opinion, and I'm not degreed, I just grew up in this, married it, had kids with it, lived in a society that it thrives in, and now it makes sense to me. So why not just make it easy? Why not just look at these things and see them for what they are, instead of trying to give other names? It aggravates me when they come up with other names for abuse, adding other things to it, only to complicate a situation for people who are being victimized or people who are survivors from it to understand exactly what it is. And I think Biderman's work does that if we look at each one and how it works. And so the other part to that I want to drive is this idea of self-care, because you can't take enough bubble baths to take care of this, or go to the spa for treatment or massages and that to get rid of it. This is something that is not the person who is being hurt by an abuser has caused, but it is something that if you've been on the receiving end of it, that you're going to have to understand and fix for yourself in having better boundaries and better understanding about coercive control and better understanding about how these people behave and how they show up, so that you can protect yourself from these people, because they're all over in our society. And if we can figure out and see the patterns for what the patterns are, then we'll be better served, I feel. And I think men understand this better because they have studied war, and more so than women. And I think women need to come up and meet that dynamic. If you look at Biderman's work, he's talking about the POWs, the POWs from 1957. So we've had this understanding about what it is. Coercive control is in racism, sexism, the governments, the systems that we have in place. It is in our homes, it's in churches, it's in schools, it's everywhere. So why not talk about it? Why not talk about coercive control? If you look it up as being defined, you're going to find all these kind of vague, I feel like they're vague definitions. For example, coercive control is a pattern of threatening, intimidating behavior used to establish and maintain power over another person. This is an AI overview. But if you look up just it defined, it's not really defined in a dictionary that I could find where it came up. Um, it gives you examples, it gives you a checklist. And that's why it's confusing to people, is because we don't understand the simplicity of it. It's kind of like when gaslighting came out and everybody was talking about gaslighting and trying to define it. And it's like when narcissism came about 10 years and everybody was trying to define that. And I think that research helps, and uh, education helps, survivors talking helps other survivors and victims to see that they are not the only ones that this is happening to, in order to help themselves. But at the same time, it's that self-care which I try to push onto the page. And I want your opinions. I want you to engage. I hope that you enjoy these conversations where you can comment and we can have more conversations about it, why this topic is important, why I keep driving this idea about Biderman and uh, narcissistic traits, Biderman as the tactics, narcissistic traits as the behavior of people who are abusive. You can find them all in the cluster Bs. If you look at sociopaths and psychopaths, and I'm not going to get into those definitions because I don't feel like that I'm capable of giving good information as far as research and that kind of thing to be able to decipher. I think it's more important to look at the patterns of behaviors of people who are abusive, the patterns of tactics that they're using in order to abuse other people, and then offering you the idea that being connected to self, being self aware, being able to apply self compassion to yourself about having this happen to you, and understand that it's not you. Uh, Most victims and survivors are very giving and loving people. As Sam Beckinsale says, she just got caught out. And I think that's the thing about uh, education. When you start to quit blaming yourself or taking the responsibility, this isn't about two parties and what happened. It's all over. You can see it in government when you have um, one person or a group of people saying this is happening, and then you have another group of people saying this is happening, and one is not uh, is lying about what it is that is happening. But when you're fed these different things through our news cycles and through people who are trying to be helpful, you may not see it, but you can see the pattern of behavior. If your kids are being groomed by somebody at a church, you can start to see this behavior. Are they monopolizing the way your child is seeing the world? Are they isolating them from other people? You can be isolated driving in a car with an abuser, just as you can be isolated um, by somebody indulging you uh, with gifts and stuff to make you think that they're this wonderful person. But you see, that's also monopolizing your perception. That's also uh, threatening your self esteem and your own ability to critically think, is this person telling me the truth? Even if it's somebody you like, because that's that whole trauma bond. Because all of a sudden they're good to you and then they're not. It's like I was talking to a friend of mine today about this idea of, and I talked to both of my parents when they were alive about this kind of behavior. Um, but it's like my father was trying to get me to give him a phone number, and I didn't want to get involved in the little drama that was going on. And so he could get it from somebody else, and I didn't need to be involved. So I kept segueing the conversation. Finally, I said I didn't want to get involved, and he clamped down on me and said something very cruel. And it took me a while to figure out what I had done wrong, because all I did was say that I didn't want to be involved in this. And I knew it was abusive. I just didn't have a name for it. But when I see it now, I see that trivial demand that he was trying to make on me to see if he could push me in a certain way. And it was trivial. It was just to give him a phone number that he could be easily gotten from anybody else. It wasn't about the phone number. It was about having power and control over me. And so that's really what I'm trying to gain with people, is I want you to see how simple this uh, is. And if we can talk about it simply as a people, then we can start seeing it in our society and making other steps to take care of it. But when you don't understand what it is, and you don't understand the complexities that have been in place for years, centuries, decades, in trying to control society. And I think it's important. I think it's important for us, especially here in the United States with what's going on, for us to see in real time those 8 tactics of abuse. Is somebody monopolizing the way that you are thinking about something? You see something and you know that it is true, and they're trying to tell you a whole different story, because we know that we can, like, maybe I didn't see that right, maybe I didn't understand that right. This is different. This is somebody actively trying to cause psychological torture on you. This is what Biderman was talking about, that POWs go through, that some people go through in their homes. Some people grow up with this stuff. Some people marry this stuff and they don't understand it. And I just want you better informed, because when I started to put this stuff together and understand it, I was angry. I was angry that people weren't talking about it so we could understand that system. And I'm just thankful to the younger generation, because I know they're wanting to tackle it and I want to support them. I don't think this is a male issue and a female issue. I think that females get treated differently than males, and I think males get treated differently than females. And I think that we can have that conversation. I think that people who identify differently get treated differently. We're all human. Let's have those hard conversations. Let's think about what this is. Let's dive into this and get some understanding as to what this is. And I'm hoping that you'll be on board with this. There'll be classes given and things coming up. So please let me know what you think. And always remember that you're loved and cared for here. And let's try to keep this simple so that we can make strides in our own ways that help other people to see this for what it is. This abuse, coercive control, is the underpinning of all abuse. That is what we need to be discussing. Take care. Bye bye.